Welcome! You are listening to the Overseas Life Redesign podcast, where you'll hear fun, relaxed, and inspirational interviews with people who are really living the dream. I'm Dawn Fleming, an attorney turned alchemist, and your host for the show, coming to you from the tropical island paradise of Isla Mujeres, Mexico. This show was created for courageous souls willing to step out of their comfort zone and design a new way of life. You'll gain inspired midlife wisdom from those who have done it as we share experiences, strategies, and offer practical steps you can take to redesign your life overseas. Listen and you'll believe if you can dream it, you can achieve it. Welcome to Magnetic Monday with Dawn. Today is January 24th, 2022, and the title is How to Safely Exit Your Comfort Zone and Have Fun Doing It. I am really excited to talk with you today about this topic. I had already kind of developed the information that I wanted to share with you today, and then I kind of nerded out a little bit and dove deeply into this research study. I shared in an article, there was an article in Inc. magazine last week that was talking about it as well. And I wanted to talk more about that because I just found it so darn fascinating. Stick with me till the end. And I know, firsthand too, that leaving your comfort zone can be scary. But today I'm going to really give you some practical tips on how you can do just that, how to safely exit your comfort zone and have fun doing it, because you can. It is possible. And even though I know our instincts are going to fight us every step of the way, no, don't do it, stay safe, don't change, we know that that's not where our future lies, right? That's not where our paradise is, on the other side of our comfort zone. So if you saw the picture, that picture that was the cover photo for the event tonight was actually a photo of the start of something called Baja Ha. And it was taken on October 25th of 2010 from our sailboat. And it was a group sail. It was the day that we left Southern California on our 48-foot center cockpit ketch, the Santorini, and headed out to eventually arrive in Florida. So that was actually the start of a 5,000 nautical mile journey that we took. And the reason we decided to do that, it's actually a group sail, and it is, I think the year that we did it was the 19th year, an annual event. And what they used to do is, people would, just like the birds, right? You head south for the winter. And so people would come all the way up from the Pacific Northwest, from Seattle, from Portland, Oregon, from Northern California, and they would sail down. They would meet in San Diego and, stop along the way, of course. And then everybody would leave at the same time on the same day to head down to Baja, to Baja California, to Cabo. It was a 10-day trip, group sail with a couple of stops with lots of parties in between. And we left that day with 165 other sailboats. It was pretty remarkable. It was an amazing experience to be part of that. Of course, there was a big farewell party at West Marine the night before with live music and prizes and food, and it was just a ton of fun. And we had just an insane month, the month of October. Tom and I actually sat down and ran through our mind all the things that we accomplished in that 1 month. It's like when you go on vacation, right? You accomplish so much the day or two before you leave. Well, that is really what happened with us. And so we just boogied in the month of October to get everything ready to go. But that was kind of the point. So one of the reasons that we decided to do that was because there was a certain date for departure. Like, you have a deadline. And if you've ever had a final exam or you've had a project due at work and you have a deadline, right? You know that like that's your deadline, and some people like to cram for something like this. Like we started getting ready probably about a year in advance, probably even earlier than that, because we knew eventually we wanted to do that. So there was a lot to do with getting the boat ready, but also getting ourselves ready physically, because you can imagine, I mean, sailing is actually really very physical. We also wanted to do that because there was experienced leadership with this group sail. They did a lot of the heavy lifting when it came to clearing in the vessels and making sure that everybody had an easy time with immigration. Coming in by boat is not the same thing as coming in to an airport, right? With the airlines and going through customs and all of that. So those leaders had done it pretty much every year. So they had it down to a science. There were daily check-ins. In the morning, there was roll call to make sure everybody was there, everything was okay. And then, of course, finally, the big piece of it is safety in numbers, right? And having a group of 165 sailboats, like if something went wrong, either mechanically on your boat or, there was some kind of an emergency, you had a support system there to be able to help you with that emergency or whatever issue you were dealing with. It was really a great way to go. I mean, I can't imagine just the two of us taking off by ourselves at that stage of our lives. I mean, Tom probably would have been fine, but I was scared to death as it was. But I did it anyways, right? But the reason was the planning, the preparation, and the comfort in knowing that you had, done your best to prepare for that type of a journey. Now, I doubt any of you are looking at that kind of an overseas move, right? But it is a study in sort of how you can prepare yourself for leaving your comfort zone and doing the things that you need to do to have the peace of mind to know that, it's going to be okay, right? Part of our preparation was asking the question, what's the worst thing that could happen? And, one of the things, you've got to think about is there are no doctors at sea, right? And there probably were doctors in that group of 165 sailboats. But if there's an accident, right, you get cut badly or you hit your head. I mean, there are things emergency wise, right, medical wise that you need to think about. And part of our preparation was ordering sterile staples on Amazon, because if there's a deep cut, right, to be able to do that's what they do in the hospital, right? They don't use stitches really anymore. They use staples or super glue, right? And I ordered the big clotting pads, right? If somebody's bleeding badly, they have these big pads. You just put them on there to stop bleeding. So to be able to prepare for the things that you need to do. Now, we also went with our two kitty cats. Chico, who's running around here somewhere, he's now 13. He was our sailor cat. And then my little female Nala went with us. And so part of it was preparing for them. What do we need to do to make sure that our animals are safe? And so we took online courses that were taught by veterinarians who were sailors. And it turned out to be a really good course. It was not expensive. I don't know, $100, $150 max. And it was a series of, I believe, 3 webinars that this veterinarian gave, along with substantial written material. But what was cool is it wasn't just first aid for pets and the things that you need to do to keep them safe and healthy, but there were also things that applied to humans. So we were also educating ourselves while we were learning about what we needed to do for our pets. We were also learning what we needed to do for ourselves in the event of an emergency and the different ways you could, respond to things. So that was a great, and we joined a sailing association, the Seven Seas Sailing Association, for $60 a year. You're part of this organization that has a global network of what they call cruising stations, and they had a whole directory. And we actually went to a couple of different ones on our trip. And it was great because if you need parts, for something, or you need provisions, these folks were sort of the ambassadors for this organization. But they have, forums, and, whether it was, when we needed to buy deep cell batteries, it was a great resource for whatever we needed for a trip like this. And it turns out that asking the question, what's the worst thing that could happen? If those of you who have been through my workshop, that that's one of the assignments, right? If things don't, what would I do if worst thing happens, it doesn't work out? I move overseas and it doesn't work out. What's the worst thing? What would I do? What's my plan B, right? And it turns out, according to this research study in this article, that asking that question and thinking that through is actually a key skill of what they call future-minded leaders. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But as I mentioned, it was actually an Inc. magazine article. It wasn't very long. It's actually just a short article, but there is a link in that article if you want to nerd out like I did on this research study. Fly at it. It's actually really well written. It's fascinating. But what it was is a study by Better Up Labs, which is a team of PhD behavioral scientists at an organization called Better Up that's dedicated to doing research on human thriving at work. And they conducted 3 studies. So even though this was a work study, more of a corporate environment, I picked out went through it and curated the most important points that I think are applicable for us in this, looking at retiring overseas or that midlife reset overseas. And I mentioned in the Paradise Post that came out this week's issue, that imagining ourselves into alternate futures and then evaluating them is a way for us to make good decisions and guide our present action. And how unique that is, right? And what I said in the newsletter is we are the only creatures on the planet that have the ability to imagine an alternate future. Other animals don't have the ability to do that. Psychologists like Martin Seligman and Roy Baumeister and others refer to this as prospection. It is the innate human ability within us all to think about the future and envision what's possible. And those of you who follow me for a while know I am a big believer in using our imagination to fuel our ability to work with our vision, right? Developing the skill of vision. And that's what we're talking about. In the past, we were all often able to draw on our memories as a way to help us look ahead. And our past history and our lived experiences, plus our imagination, is what helped us move forward through our life. But with COVID, we kind of learned in a big way that the past is no longer a reliable roadmap for our future. And what we have come to be intimately familiar with is the thing that is certain is change and uncertainty. And we're just not well prepared for it as human beings and as a society. It's just not something we've had to develop the skills to navigate. So in this study, they cited a recent study that was outside of what they did, but it revealed that 63% of Americans said they're stressed by uncertainty about what the next few months will bring. And 49%, half, said that planning for their future feels impossible. What I have taught in the workshops, and I talk about in my book, is this difference between being reactive or being proactive. So think about this. If you are feeling like planning the future is impossible, what does that mean? That means you're not going to be proactive about planning at all. You're going to be strictly in a reactive mode. And I use the analogy of a thermometer versus a thermostat, right? A thermometer just tells you what the temperature is. So it's like the temperature is planning for my future feels impossible. That's the temperature. Nothing else. The thermostat controls the temperature, and that's the proactive part of figuring out what it is that you want. Is the temperature is not good. Whoa, I'm feeling stressed about the future. Okay, well, let's change it, right? Let's turn that dial on the thermostat. So while the pandemic shone a light on uncertainty, the fact that, right, nothing in life is certain, and that we are not in control, it certainly isn't the only cause, right? And we're seeing also, and I'll probably talk about this a little bit more in the coming months, is the Great Resignation, right? People quitting their jobs, sort of the I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore phenomena that is happening. The researchers say that traditional strategic planning is broken and the old ways of forecasting no longer work in the rampant uncertainty of our new normal. And again, this study was done in a more of a corporate situation. And what they're saying is companies are slow to respond to the changes in customer needs and demands, and the market's really unpredictable. And that opens the door, opportunity, right? You see opportunity there for disruption. And then, as I mentioned, the resignations, that people going, I don't really like it here. I'm going to go do something else. So what they found is people who balance optimistic action with the thoughtful pragmatism, the realistic side, tend to create space for them to be able to reflect on and be ready for the potential outcomes. And they tend to be more successful, more hopeful, and less stressed than those who are not. So the researchers call these people future-minded leaders, and they say that these folks possess the skills that are needed to thrive in this changing, unpredictable environment that we are living in.
We'll be back in a moment.
Isla Mujeres is a Caribbean jewel off the coast of Cancun. Castilito del Caribe warmly invites you to enjoy our spectacular oceanfront villa located in the heart of El Centro and a short walk to Playa Norte, which is ranked one of the top 10 beaches in the world. With an ocean view of crystal clear turquoise waters overlooking both the Caribbean and Cancun city skyline, we offer a fabulous location for you to enjoy all the peace and tranquility you're looking for on vacation, while also taking in all the excitement the island has to offer, with activities either in walking distance or a golf cart day excursion away. Please visit CastilitoCaribe.com, www.CastilitoCaribe.com. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Is it time to go? Are you starving for adventure and new experiences? Ready to lower your living costs and upgrade your quality of life? Do you long for the freedom to live anywhere with the economic satisfaction of earning in paradise? Imagine waking up in paradise every day saying, "Pinch me, is this real?" You can live a happier, healthier, and more joyful life. Don't know where to start? Then grab our free Paradise Checklist to begin dreaming again and start defining your paradise. It's waiting for you at paradisechecklist.com. Welcome back to the Overseas Life Redesign podcast. Thank you so much for being here, and we invite you to subscribe if you like what you hear.
So I just want to share a couple of the main points here. There's, like I said, it's a pretty long study, and I don't want to bore you with all of the things that are really more corporate driven, but some of these things I picked out I think are really important to share. The study suggests that being unable to plan causes powerlessness, this feeling of powerlessness, which in turn causes stress and emotional turmoil. Right. And the natural reaction to these feelings might be, oh, I'm just going to try to exert more control and be more rigid in an ambiguous or rapidly changing environment. But what ends up happening is it kind of creates a downward spiral, because this only serves to create more stress and more frustration. And what they found in this study was that these future-minded leaders were reporting 34% less anxiety and 35% less depression. They were more optimistic about the future, more productive, and had greater life satisfaction than those low on the scale of these future-minded skills. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is it's going to take you more time to plan. And you guys know what a big advocate of planning I am. I mean, that's kind of what my whole book is about, right? Is planning. How do you make a plan? How do you adjust? How do you do it? It's all about planning. And so this was just music to my ears when I read this. But they said for future-minded leaders say they spend 147% more time on planning their lives, 159% more time planning in their work than those low on these leadership scale. So that means when it comes to future readiness, it's both the quality of your planning and the time that you invest in it that is making the difference. The rub, though, here, the big difference is that these future-minded leaders find that it's easier to envision the possibilities ahead, right? So that means the more you do it, the better you get at it, just like any other skill. So if you spend that time, you invest that time in planning and you invest that time into thinking about, well, what if, you are going to, it's going to get easier. The other point that they make is this, I thought this was really interesting. And that is why I invest in coaches and consultants and a team of experts to help me in my business and my investments in life, because we're not good at judging our own ideas that we don't have a self-interest in. When it comes to our own ideas, our ability to be both optimistic and realistic about the limitations and liabilities disintegrates, right? And they call this the innovator's bias. And if it's left unchecked, it prevents us from forecasting future consequences in a way that helps us adapt. Okay, and it interferes with the quality of our strategic planning. So I thought that was really insightful, because I've found that to be true just in my own experience in working with different folks who are giving me input on what I'm doing. I have lots of ideas. I think most of them are absolutely fabulous. I need somebody, and Tom actually is a big part of that, to say, oh, whoa, that's kind of a little bit out there. I don't know about that. What about this? What about that? We need that, as it turns out. In fact, the late Navy Admiral James Stockdale described this power of imagining the worst and planning for the best. He says, quote, "You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be." I love that quote. I think I might have to put that in the newsletter for next week. So what does that mean? What does all that mean? I wanted to share this story. I talk about it in the Claim Your Dream Life book. But when Tom and I lived in Southern California, we had a plan for a 9.0 earthquake in Los Angeles. Now, think about that for a minute. I mean, there have been some pretty bad earthquakes. I think there's been, I don't remember what the one up in San Francisco was, where all the freeways fell down like pancakes and a whole lot of bad things happened. But we thought about this. And meanwhile, like, we're planning our dream life in paradise, remember, where we've got the murals on the dining room wall with the ocean front view that is now our current reality. You know, our balusters, we've got the whole house, the Caribbean beach lobby bar, a hotel lobby bar, and in the back room. And we're really thinking in positive terms about our future, on one hand. On the other hand, we're living in, next to a county with 10 million people, LA County. Orange County, I think, has, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6. But from LA County to San Diego, there's about 30 million people that live in that southern California region. It's a lot of people. And it's really dense population. If there was an earthquake of that magnitude, there would likely be no power. A lot of the roads would be impassable. I mean, you just think through, you've seen disaster movies, right? You kind of think it through. Some of them are over the top, but you get the idea. So we had a plan. And part of that included the Santorini in LA Harbor, always keeping the fuel tanks and the water tanks full. So she was ready to go. And our plan was, if we were separated, like, Tom was at work or I was out somewhere and we couldn't communicate with each other, right? Because if the power is down, guess what? There's probably no cell coverage. There might be phone, but there probably isn't. There's not Wi-Fi or anything. There's not going to be any internet. And the fuel, the gas pumps aren't going to work. The roads, again, are impassable. So Tom had a BMW motorcycle. I had a bicycle. I had a beach cruiser. And we have these little backpack cat carriers, they fit under the airline seat. And I knew if I left my house in Orange, California, I lived 2 blocks from Catella Avenue. Catella Avenue was a straight shot. It was just a residential street, side street, went all the way to LA Harbor. Might take me a while to ride that bicycle all the way to LA Harbor, but I could do it, right? And that was our plan. We had a plan. Now, thankfully, we never had to execute that plan, but we had it. What was the worst case scenario? That was it. When we were living in Los Angeles, now we've also, thought about, we had a tsunami actually when we lived there once. There's other potential disasters, but that's part of the preparation. That's part of sort of the control that you get. It's not that we dwelled on a 9.0 earthquake. It's not that we were paranoid about it or anything like that. It was just a reality that was a possibility, and given the number of earthquakes that they have in California, a very real possibility that never came to pass, but we were prepared. I'm going to skip forward to the skills. Like I said, I curated a few of them here that I thought were really apropos for our environment that we're talking about here, which is moving overseas and navigating that transition. The tips to develop the skills to become this forward-focused thinking and develop the same mindset as these future-minded leaders that have lower stress levels and have these skills that are really, really valuable in our current reality. Number 1, it says, ask the science-based floodlight question. And that was what I had just talked about, is what is the worst case scenario? What's the worst thing that could happen? So in the process of planning for your overseas move, right, that's it, right? Or even where you're at right now. It's to help you gain control, to be able to not like be cocooned into your comfort zone and say, oh, the world's too scary, too much is going on, I can't breathe, I can't move, I can't think about the future. We don't want you to do that. It turns out, like I said, this is actually a really useful skill to ask that question and say, what is the worst outcome? And be prepared with that. Like I said, the research illustrates that we have blinders on when we think about our own ideas or futures, and we have a tendency to see the ideal best case scenario with ease. So if we can balance that tendency towards optimism with this realism, this practical question, what's the worst outcome? That's huge. And I think I got it. I think I covered that. Number 2, get diverse input from others about your ideas or plans. That's exactly what we did with the Seven Seas Cruising Association. So being part of this community, being part of a community, being involved, say, on these expat Facebook groups and different communities that are moving in the same direction that you are. I see that all the time. I'll see posts about, well, I'm thinking about doing this. And, there'll be like 100 comments. Oh, I did this, and, making suggestions. So get input from others about your ideas or plans. Number 3, look in the rear view mirror. And they didn't really say that in the report, but what they said was basically look to the past, right? And I refer to this as plan, do, review. So, and I had a business coach who, when we were doing annual planning, taught me this exercise called a look in the rearview mirror. And that is when you get to the beginning of a new year, say you're planning your year, the first quarter, whatever, you do this exercise. It's a look back, and you just, think about the past year, and it's kind of like the plan, do, review. What worked? What didn't work? And what could I do different or better to have a better outcome for this year? So that process of analyzing, so you do your plan, you execute it, and then you review it and make course corrections. They say a rocket ship on the way to the moon is off course over 90% of the time, right? It's the gyroscope that keeps, like it adjusts it to make sure that the rocket gets to the moon. Number 4, I love this, get support. They actually say coaches can offer support and guidance to cultivate resilience, optimism, reflection. Coaches also serve as a reliable sounding board to explore ideas and uncover blind spots and biases in our own thinking. That was just what I was talking about. So research across thousands of BetterUp members has shown that personal skills in prospection, right, that ability to imagine, to vision the future, have the largest degree of growth relative to all other measured personal and leadership skills within 6 months of coaching. And they say that future-minded leadership is a key skill that leads to mindsets and behaviors that are a sign of flourishing. So I got really excited about this study.
Great tips and strategies to help us navigate
unpredictable, constantly changing time that we are living in. So that's what I have for you today. I do have an ask if you are so inclined. My book launch is coming up the end of March 29th. And I'm putting together my book launch team, which is volunteers who are willing to help me do the 30-day countdown to the book launch. So probably starting the beginning of March, we'll be providing you all sorts of information, artwork, and text I'd like to share on social media. If you're interested in helping me do that, I would love to have you as part of the book launch volunteer team. Of course, you'll get access to the electronic copy of the book. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, and if you're not able to do that or interested in doing that, I do want to mention again that the book is available on Kindle on Amazon. The hard copy will be out March 29th, and the book is also available to be reviewed on Goodreads. So if you want to check it out, I would love to get your feedback on that. And otherwise, we will see you next week.
This episode of the Overseas Life Redesign podcast was brought to you by our sponsors. Thanks for tuning in. Did you love this episode of the Overseas Life Redesign podcast? Then please subscribe to our show and leave us a nice review. It's very much appreciated. We invite you to visit paradisechecklist.com and download our free Paradise Checklist to start your journey. We'd also love for you to become part of our Claim Your Dream Life community. Thank you for listening.